Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I am Delegate Kayla Young, and I'm joined here with Senator Rich Lindsay.
Hello. Oh, yeah. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
It's day 30 of the legislature. We've made it. We're halfway through, and we are joining you this morning from the joint Senate and House Democratic committees to talk about what's going on in the legislature. How do you think it's going? This feels more like a news broadcast.
Yeah, it could be going better. Let's just say that.
Could be going a little bit better. So we haven't seen a lot of our legislation move yet. Not really surprising, but it is very disappointing. So we're coming at you today to talk about what's been going on and mainly about what are bills that aren't running. So we've seen a lot of things about how we bring people to West Virginia, a little bit of legislation about that. But what we haven't seen are ways to keep people in West Virginia, ways to retain students. Something that we've introduced over on the House side is the Stay in West Virginia tax credit, Stay in State. It's a tax credit that would allow students who graduate to stay in West Virginia and make a life and reduce their student loan burdens, because we know that's really bad for it's hard to pay your student loans and try to get a job and make a life. Something else that we've seen is a large attack on public education. Over in the House, we're dealing with House Bill 4011, Anti-Stereotyping Act, but what it really is critical race theory light. What we're not seeing is any support for teachers who are in year 2 of a pandemic. It's incredibly unfortunate that we're continuing to try to hurt public education. We also, yesterday in the House, got to see the Build West Virginia bill. It's one of the governor's bills. It's a bill to help developers building homes. What we're not seeing is anything to help people buy homes, help young people who are trying to live here and do well, and we're not seeing anything like that. We also haven't seen any proposals yet for American Rescue Plan funding. We put forth several proposals for how we think that money should be spent that's going to best help West Virginians, and we just aren't seeing it happen at all. How's the Senate?
Well, I think you ran down a good list of things that both the Senate Dems and the House Dems support universally and hope to get to see the light of day. One of the things that we have pushed, and actually it's a bipartisan bill, is paid family leave. When we had, for folks who were listening last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, all my days running together, but on Senate Bill 2 and 3, allegedly the arguments for cutting unemployment benefits was to increase workforce participation. However, when we got on the floor, that wasn't the reason at all. All it was a tax cut, a hidden tax cut for businesses in West Virginia. If you're truly serious about worker participation, paid leave is the way to go. There's a study done nationally here recently where mothers who received paid leave following delivery were 93% more likely to join the workforce. That's the kind of stuff that puts West Virginians back to work. And the more people who are back to work and enjoy their jobs and have that ability, the better our workforce participation will be, and the better our economy will be. And I wish that Delegate Young and I could take credit for all the paid leave bills. We each have one in the House and in the Senate, but there are Republicans, and I'll be honest with you, Senator Trump has a bill, it's a pilot program for paid leave. Senator Eric Nelson has a paid leave bill for public employees. Unfortunately, those bills aren't moving, and I think I can speak for Delegate Young in that if we could just get our foot in the door or some movement on that, that's what will have major effect in West Virginia. Not bills that cut unemployment benefits again to only reduce the insurance premium on businesses. That's all that's going to do. And on that particular point, I'll only add, and I'll echo the remarks of Senator Baldwin on the floor. One of the things people talk about in support of these unemployment bills is, well, North Carolina did it, Florida did it, Georgia did it. Well, you know what? They don't have seasons. Their construction workers work all year round. Their hospitality workers work all year round. That's not the case in West Virginia, and I bet you a donut to a dollar that the governor doesn't understand that it's going to hurt the Greenbrier. And hopefully the folks on the House side will take that under consideration. And so, again, Democrats in the legislature are leading when it comes to tax cuts for all West Virginians. They're leading when it comes to minimum wage bills and a constitutional amendment to let the people of West Virginia decide the issue on minimum wage. And we're leading when it comes to workforce participation.
We care about workers very
Absolutely, much. Absolutely. So does anyone, unless you have something else to say,
I think I'm good.
okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, can I get both of you to weigh in? Obviously, there's the Democratic minority has presented a sales tax reduction plan at the beginning of session. Chairman Householder has a bill that should be up for passage tomorrow, a reduction of personal income tax plan, that's moving. Can you weigh, and I know there's some other proposals out there, can you all weigh in kind of on the kind of differences or the issues between the Republican tax plans that are being pushed right now versus some of the things you guys are trying to do?
Sure. Yeah. So on the House side, our sales tax plan it reduces the sales tax, but only when the rainy day fund is significant, which it is now. So it only reduces it when we have the money in the bank to pay for it. The Republican plan that we're seeing is very similar to the plan we saw last year. It introduces the SAFER fund and it reduces people's income tax, but it doesn't replace it. It just creates a hole in the budget that we're going to have to make up for in a few years. The Justice Administration stopped showing budget forecasts, so we have no idea what long-term impact this is going to have, and we're not talking about that at all. We would all love to see a reduction in taxes, but we already have enough services that are underfunded, so we're not interested in doing anything like that. We're also scared, no offense to the Senate, but when this went over last time, it was just a tax reduction, and the Senate added in so many taxes on so many small businesses, and we don't want to see that again. So that's my take.
Yes, and I just to follow up on what Delegate Young said, I mean, if you want to boil it down to the differences, the Democrat plan is responsible. The Democrat plan is a tax cut for all West Virginians. Everyone would see a benefit of anywhere between $200 to $300 or even more than that. So that's the difference. And there won't be as Delegate Young pointed out, unfortunately, if Delegate Householder's bill comes across, there are folks here in the Senate chamber who just want to increase expense for all West Virginians. And that we just don't think that's fair or right. Again, I go back to, if you believe what the governor says about how prosperous the state is, then all West Virginians need to benefit from that prosperity. And we believe our tax plan does that and does it in a responsible way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Anything else?
There is one in the chat. Thanks for talking. It's from Lacey Pearson. She says, thanks for talking with us today. Have you seen much movement on bills to deal with the overcrowded regional jails? Also, do you have a take on these bills that decrease transparency about what's going on in the adult incarceration facilities?
Did you guys do that over here?
Yes. Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and answer. Thank you, Lacey, for the question. I think there are 3 bills that have passed the Senate that have to do with the confidentiality of certain correctional records as it applies to juveniles and even adults. You know, one thing that I was able to get through or amended in, not through my amendment, but through my conversations with Senator Trump, is that the exceptions for FOIA still apply to all those bills. And so while, you know, there may be some hesitation in support of the bills or some question about the bills because, you know, we want everything to be open and obvious, at least those FOIA exceptions still exist and apply to those bills. And I think it makes it fair. And I have to thank a constituent of mine that called me out on it and pulled me aside and said that needed to happen in all 3 bills. And so that's what I was lobbying for. As far as the jail bill, which I think is the other question that Lacey asked, there are a lot of conversations going on how to deal with overcrowding of jails and the jail bill and who's going to pay and who's going to be responsible for it. I feel confident. I feel optimistic at this point in the legislative session that there can be some bipartisan agreement on that. There are several conversations that are going on that involve the stakeholders, at least on the Senate side, and we look forward to being able to put something forth that addresses that issue.
Yeah, I think on the House side, the conversation has mainly not been so much about overcrowding in terms of number of people, but about the cost of the jail bills and maybe shifting that to the state. I know we do want to address that to make sure our counties are okay, but I would like to see that conversation shift to talking about why our jails are so crowded in the first place and how we can reduce those numbers. I know we have a lot of proposals to do that, and so I hope they'll take some of them up.
We have 2 more. First one is from Charles Young. Could y'all comment on the governor's inflatocene proposal? Is there any Democratic support for it in the House?
I don't know that I've even seen the bill, honestly. So, I mean, right now we're dealing with personal income tax reduction. We are dealing with paying for a much needed raise for some state employees. And not being on finance, I honestly don't know how the money shakes out. It's weird to me we haven't seen American Rescue Plan funds being used. I'm not sure if that could be used. And honestly, it's not something that has really come up yet. So I don't know that I have a concise answer.
Well, I'm not, Charles, thank you for the question. I don't know if I'm entirely sure what is meant by inflatocene. I know that I can tell you this, that what has propelled and somewhat our tax policy as state Democrats in reducing the sales tax for all West Virginians, what has propelled or had input on our bills to raise the minimum wage and to put forth a constitutional amendment is because of the reality that there is inflation in West Virginia. That energy costs are high, water costs are high. It looks like they're getting any higher. And again, we think that we're the only party at this in this Capitol that's actually trying to address that particular issue. I would also add that the Democrats have a bill, Senate Bill 233, and I'm sure there's a similar one in the House that addresses COLA, that raises COLA for our public employees and teachers. Again, another measure to address not only inflation, but the fact that they haven't seen an increase in several years.
Mm-hmm.
And the COLA is a?
Cost of living adjustment.
Thank you, Delegate Young. Thank you. Thank you.
Second question, Leah Willingham with the AP. Are there any legislative priorities for you both when it comes to aiding people struggling with substance use? Any bills being proposed that you're worried about advancing that you think will not be productive on this issue?
I mean, I think anything like Senate Bill 334 last year will not be productive. I hope we don't revisit anything related to banning harm reduction. We've seen it doesn't work. In terms of bills that we're putting forward, this is not my wheelhouse at all, so I don't have anything. I lean on Delegate Pushkin typically because he's really great on these types of issues. We have a couple other members of the House that are really good on this.
Yeah, I think there are a couple Senate bills that I'm familiar with that address it at least on the periphery, and that addresses housing for folks who are recovery houses. Senator Wolfel and Senator Weld have come together on a couple different bills to deal with that, so that folks who are dealing with recovery or going through recovery are given every opportunity to do so and have fair housing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
One more question.
Round two.
Yeah, just one final question. Do you think Republicans this session are more interested in pushing bills that are more messaging bills? I think House Bill 4011 is a good example of that when you really get into it, while it requires a lot of things, there's not really any enforcement mechanisms with it. It seems more aimed at trying to make base voters happy going into a primary. 15-week abortion ban, that seems to be red meat for their base versus all West Virginians. Do you think that Republicans are a little bit more focused on bills that are going to help them into the elections versus long-term helping?
At least on the House side, absolutely. They're focused on very red meat issues that aren't what people are talking about at the dinner table. It's not helping anybody pay their bills. It's not helping anybody advance in life. They are just trying to throw some meat out to the base.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, on that particular point, what we've seen in the Senate, I would submit that the unemployment bills are bills that seek to divide. The president of the Senate stood up the day before we took those bills up and said, I know people who wait till the last day of their unemployment benefit before they get a job. That's not true. There's nothing that backs that up. In fact, Scott Atkins, the Commissioner of Workforce West Virginia, said very specifically that most people get employed within the first 6 weeks. Most people get employed thereafter within the first 15 weeks. And then there are a few. But he also said that the barriers to unemployment have nothing to do with people getting benefits for 26 weeks. It has to do with child care, which we believe our paid leave bills addresses. It has to do with transportation, and it has to do with COVID. Republicans have submitted no bills, save for the 2 paid leave bills I talked about before, that addresses those issues. So clearly it's an election issue. They want to go out and suggest to the public that Democrats are for supporting people who want to take advantage of the system. That's not true. What Democrats support is getting people back to work. And those 2 bills will not do that.
We're focused on bringing money into West Virginia, and the way we do that is with a strong, healthy workforce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody else?
I think that's it. Happy day 30, everybody.
Oh, yeah. The only thing I'd add is folks who are listening, feel free to chime in and reach out to us. We've got 30 days left. It tends to get crazy, as everyone in this room knows, and I'm sure a lot of people online know. So I know Kayla and I are both very open to taking any suggestions, comments, criticisms that you may have. So otherwise, have a good and happy day. All right.